Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition. It is championship week. Rejoice to all who have made it. Congrats to you all. It is championship week here. We're coming at you with another week of fantasy football consistency goodness. Hope you all had a blessed holiday season so far. Hopefully, Christmas was good to you and your fantasy teams were good to you. I got so many lumps of coal, I'm going to start my own factory, but we'll talk about that later. As always, I'm Bob Lung, Big Guy Fantasy Sport. That man who is in the heat, he is the heat miser. He is Ron Rigney from Florida. Ron, how's it going, brother?
Good, man. Yeah, again, hope everybody had a good holiday. I must have been a good boy this year because Santa brought me not one, but two championships, one of them being a King's Classic, the other one being my one money league. So we'll see how that goes. A little bit iffy this week. Got some injuries, got some guys that are a little questionable. So we'll see how that goes. But again, the fantasy gods were shining upon me last week, as they say. So yeah, hopefully the same thing for everybody else out there. Hopefully you're playing for those championships, and hopefully you're using that consistency, adding those guys on that waiver wire, and getting that ship this week. So good luck to everybody that's in the finals.
Yeah, as many of you know, I'm sure already, there's a lot of stuff going down. It's not in a good way. CD Lamb is now listed out. Kenneth Walker is, of course, out for tonight's game. So get the champagne of running backs in there, Mr. Zach Charbonnet. Hopefully he is the champagne of running backs tonight because I'm in a trade for him in my dynasty league because I have Kenneth Walker. So let's hope that comes through. But the way it's been going for me, I'm not holding my breath. So let's continue on, Ron. We've had a heck of a season. Like I said, I've had a lot of success. You've had a lot of success during the regular season. Playoffs, nonetheless, weren't as favorable. But let's talk a little bit about the quarterbacks. Now, we've said all season that it has been a bad year for quarterbacks from a consistency perspective. But I've got the stats now here, and this is basically through week 15. There have been some games played already. I'm sorry, week 16. We got a few games already played. Wednesday, Christmas Day games, which I absolutely think is stupid on a Wednesday. You shouldn't be playing any football on Christmas Day. I don't care if you play basketball; that's up to you. But there should be no football games on Christmas Day. It's supposed to be for family, and I hated it, so I didn't watch any of them. But interestingly enough, the tied for 12th in the highest 12th highest consistent quarterbacks. There's a tie between Jared Goff and Kyler Murray at 47%, Ron. We can't even have a top 12 quarterbacks be above, they're supposed to be above 60. That's what it's supposed to be. But these quarterbacks have been so inconsistent this year and so bad that we can't even get top 12, the 12th quarterback to be above, even tied at 50%. 11th is 50%. The 10th highest is 53. The 9th highest is 57. That means only 8 quarterbacks are above 60%, which still isn't good. Realistically, they should be above 70. If you really want quality out of your consistency, out of your running, out of your wide receiver, out of your quarterbacks, there's only been 5 of those. Lamar Jackson, 83%, 87%. Then tied for second, third, fourth, and fifth at 73% are the following: Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, Jaden Daniels. So even Jalen Hurts was at 67%. Sam Darnold was at 67%. And Drake May, even though he only played 11 games, was at 64%. Ron, we're going to get to the tight end, so I'll just ruin the fun for them. At least the top 12 tight ends were at 50% or higher. Have the quarterbacks finally stooped to an all-time low? Is this what we're looking at? Do we need to panic going into next year and make sure we get Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, and Jaden Daniels? Maybe they'll still be as good next year, but Chris Godwin may not be on that team, but he's been still very clutch without him. I feel like they can continue that success, but holy cow, Ron, what do we do with quarterbacks as we head into next year? And I'm sure we'll talk more about it in the offseason, but as it stands right now, do we just not even try and just, I don't know. It's sad.
It's tough because you look at those guys at the top, and you mentioned Baker Mayfield and Jaden Daniels, and those are not guys that you would have drafted as your starter. I know of at least two different people that I'm friends with and that play, and they're running with Baker. I'm one of the guys that's running with Baker. I drafted Jordan Love, and then I got Baker Mayfield as my insurance policy. Baker's been that guy, and then I'm actually squaring off in a Kings Classic Championship against Jaden Daniels this week, so I'm hoping he doesn't have 5 touchdowns this week. But again, it's funny too when you look at the total points, you look at the consistency. It's those guys 11 through 20 that are really killing you as far as the consistency. The points are there because they've had some big outputs. Jared Goff's a guy that I have on my championship Kings Classic team, and there's been weeks where we've talked about it. He's the yardage total is down, and then he's had weeks where he's exploded for 30, 40 points, and that's where the majority of those points are coming from. But I don't know that we need to panic. I think we need to stick with what we do, and what we do is we get those quarterbacks later, and we try to mix and match and find those matchups. Again, you talked about Jalen Hurts up there. Sam Darnold's another guy that's up there in consistency. Who knows what he's going to do? You would think Minnesota would bring him back, but that kind of remains to be seen. But I think we'll kind of sit and do what we normally do and get those quarterbacks a little bit later. But the guy that I'm going to highlight this week is a guy that when you look at our consistency list, you got to go scroll even further than those guys at 47%. And it's a guy that has not recorded a clutch game in a while, but has an excellent matchup this week, and he should get one. And I'm really hoping he gets me one because I have to start him, and that's Mason Rudolph. Again, he would have had one last week, had 252 and 2 touchdowns against Indianapolis in a losing effort, but also threw the 3 picks, which kind of knocked him out of the running for that clutch game. But again, I got to roll with him this week because Jalen Hurts, I don't know if he's going to play. We'll see where that goes, but it was kind of down to Aiden O'Connell and Mason Rudolph. So I picked Mason Rudolph out of those two. But he's had a few weeks where, 240 and 2 scores and a pick, 266 and a score. It's just if you keep the interceptions down. But usually for quarterbacks in fantasy, the cure for what ails you is those Jacksonville Jaguars, and that's who they have this week. So again, they really have nothing to play for, but Mason Rudolph's playing for hopefully a tryout or a job next year. So hopefully he can ball out a little bit against Jacksonville. But again, not really a guy that you want to pin your championship hopes on. But if you're missing a guy like Jaden Hurts, especially in a 2 QB league like I'm in, you could do a lot worse than Mason Rudolph against Jacksonville.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of them. I mean, they're talking about Anthony Richardson may not be healthy enough to play now, and they may just bring Joe Flacco in for fun. So who knows? Yeah, I mean, so I just kind of wanted to talk about, quarterbacks again. It's funny in my Kings. So the 2 Kings Classic leagues have made it to the playoffs, 13-1, 12-2. One of them had Joe Burrow. Not a problem. Don't even think twice. He's in every week. The other one, the con-streaming trio of Bo Nix, Sam Darnold, and Matthew Stafford, went 12-2. Could be a way to do things next year. Find those guys that right matchups, playing indoors, all that kind of things. They're still hard to predict. Obviously, I picked wrong in that league. I put in Matthew Stafford this week, thinking he might have a shootout against Aaron Rodgers. Didn't happen. Didn't matter. I lost by 50 anyway. I got slaughtered. But, Sam Darnold and Bo Nix both had 20-some points. Bo Nix, I really like a lot. I mean, he does things with his feet. He seems to make good decisions. Got decent weapons in Cortland Sutton, running back trio of whoever. But if they can upgrade their second wide receiver, maybe get a back that's going to be a strong back, whether it's Estime, whether it's Javonte, do something. But, Bo Nix seems to get it done. So I think he's going to be one of those guys I'm going to be looking at next year. Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, the other ones I wanted to kind of mention. They're going head-to-head Monday night, believe it or not, in my Dynasty Finals. Those are my 2 quarterbacks in the 2-quarterback league. So, yeah, I would love to believe I could go into that game already won, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I just don't want to be down like 105. I'm hoping I can go into that game, be down like 30, and, shouldn't be a problem. But should be a heck of a game anyway. I feel like it's going to be pretty much a shootout. Looking forward to that. But, again, both of those guys, as you mentioned, Jared Goff 7th in total points. Purdy 13th in total points. Now he missed a game, but he's 67%, 57%. Jared Goff 47%. So they haven't been great from a consistency standpoint. Kind of helps when you have two quarterbacks like that. I think some of the weeks like Goff got his 40 points and Purdy only had maybe 15 or 18. So combined, they did pretty good. I don't know what I needed on a two quarterback league for the combined two quarterbacks, but I think I got enough every week because in that league, we do the 2 wins per week. So you get the win for the actual win. And then if you're in the upper half, so I went 24 and 4 out of 14 weeks. So they obviously paid off okay, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. And we'll certainly talk more about the quarterbacks as we head into next year and start working on the 2025 consistency guide. Running backs, whole other story. Just still dumbfounds me how far down you have to go to get even. I think it's, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the 12th guy, 12th running back, is at 79%. That's James Cook. 14, 15, 16, 17, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So 23 is 64%, 24 is 57%. So again, all of them over. So the top, so you're basically your 1 and 2, which is what you want. You want, again, almost all 24 were over 60%. There was one at 50, a couple of them at 57, just missed out. So that's what we would want to see. That's what we would hope for, is our top 12 is above 70%, which is actually almost above 80%. So that was great. But the depth was definitely there this year, Ron. A lot of guys, I mean, there's certainly some injuries. We always have that. People filling in, some surprises, that have kind of come in and caught some people off guard with their talent and, playing at higher than expectations. But Ron, your thoughts on, those top 24 running backs and maybe a running back that you're interested in this week after, as you're looking forward to week 17.
Yeah, you got to scroll pretty far down to find where that break off is at 50% even. And that guy at number 30 or number 32 is Christian McCaffrey right there at 50%. So I don't think that you would have seen that coming if you drafted him number 1 overall. But a lot of these backfields too, a lot of these guys, there's multiple guys in the same backfield that are above 50% consistent, which we don't see a lot. Of course, the Detroit running backs, you got the Washington running backs that both are. You got Zach Charbonnet sneaking in there with Ken Walker. So again, you don't have to look, then find that bell cow back. There's a lot of guys that are in the same backfield that are getting a lot of run. You talk about those Denver running backs as well, which I'll highlight one of those in a second. But it'd be interesting to see if that is that new trend now for the next couple of years, where you're going to go heavy running back in the first round. Because the guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, I think they may all make a great case. One of the things I was wondering while you were talking too is when you watch some of these games too, it looks like, and I don't know how it compares to previous seasons, but it looks a lot of soft run defenses out there. Teams are just kind of bowling guys over and just pounding the football kind of at will against some of these defenses. So it'd be interesting to kind of dive into that in the offseason and see how that shakes out. But the guy I'm going to talk about is the guy that I want to talk about anytime I get a chance. And I would have thought he would have gotten a little bit more play this season. He started to get it kind of here at the end of the season, and I think they're just trying to see what they have in him, and that's Audric Estime. Finally got his first clutch game last week. 9 carries, 48 yards, scored the first touchdown for Denver last week. Again, in that running back by committee, Javonte Williams is a free agent. I wouldn't think they would re-sign him. I don't know. I really, really hope they give Audric Estime a shot at this, because the dude, you watch him last week, his vision is just there. He just has a nose for the football. 227, 5'11". I mean, he's a stout dude. He's going to get you those short yardage, those short yards. He breaks tackles. The only thing that he does not do is he does not catch the ball out of the backfield very well. As far as the pros, you look at his stats at Notre Dame, he got better at it as he got to be towards the end of his career. I'd love to see him catch the ball a little bit more. But if he can be that guy in first and second down and get you, kind of those Tony Pollard carries, I guess, those 12 to 15 carries a game. Again, you said, like you said, they've got to find something consistent to help Bo Nix out. And I think the guy, and I'm really pulling for that guy, I think the guy that they have right there already behind him in Audric Estime could be that guy, and they won't have to look very far.
Totally agree. I mean, I don't know where Javante's going to go. I mean, he might go somewhere as a backup and maybe sneak in. I guess the Raiders is always an option since they're kind of a hot mess. But that's that. Yeah, there isn't. Other than that, there isn't much out there. But yeah, like you said, they got to do something. They got to stick with, a player that they can feel comfortable with. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's probably why Sean Payton drafted this kid, is to bring him in there, kind of make him the, maybe the Jamal Williams that you had in for the Saints. And maybe they keep Williams, Javante, and then with Estime do a kind of a 1-2 punch. They haven't done it yet this year very well. Like I said, the last game the other night seemed like Javante Williams was in almost all the plays until he got to the end zone. Then they put Estime in to be the bulldog, which is fine, and that makes sense. But yeah, I feel like they need to use him more. Like you said, he caught a lot of passes out of the backfield. I was like, why are they not using him out of the backfield?
Well, not even that. They mix in Mike Burton a little bit. They had Jaleel McLaughlin in the beginning of the season, who's everybody wanted. So I don't know if they're just trying to figure out what they have on the roster, but I'm really hoping that Estime takes that job. But they got a lot of options already in-house.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to kind of focus on another duet like I did in the quarterback positions. And we talked a little bit about this. You mentioned, the teams that have these two running backs that seem to, really do well together. Gibbs, Montgomery, Brian Robinson, and Austin Eckler when he was there, Walker and Charbonnet. But another duo that kind of started as a solo artist and then became a duet halfway through the thing. Rachaad White was supposed to be the man, had a nice end of last year. I had him ranked fairly high. I really kind of had a thing for Rachaad White. And of course, they talked about Bucky Irving coming in there, doing something, blah, blah, blah. But we've heard this about so many running backs that come in, oh, he's supposed to take over. He's supposed to be the next this guy, then that guy. And it never seems to work out. Well, Bucky Irving did. But the funny thing is that after like week 7, I thought that Rachaad White died because I never heard his name talked about. It was always Bucky Irving, Bucky Irving, Bucky Irving, And the interesting thing is Bucky Irving is 8 points ahead of Rachaad White. They're ranked 17th and 18th respectively. But Rachaad White is 71% consistent because he's 10 of 14. Bucky Irving is 10 of 15 at 67%. These guys couldn't be any more equal, but still both over 60% consistency. Will that continue into 2025? We'll have to wait and see. But it seems to be a successful pattern that worked out well so that, because then Baker Mayfield could, he still got his Mike Evans. Obviously, McMillan seems to be a potential future. But using those two guys, they both catch passes well out of the backfield, both run the ball well. Definitely keep an eye on those two heading into next year. Because they both are on the same team, maybe they'll kind of lower each respective ADP and you won't have to draft either one of them very high, and might be a nice combo to have on your roster for sure. So, all right, let's move to the wide receiver positions. Still at the top is Mr. Jamar Chase. Still has only missed one clutch game all year. Is 93%. Malik Neighbors at 92%. Nico Collins, 90%. Justin Jefferson, 87. A.J. Brown, 83. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, a bunch of Terry McLaurin, Puka Nacua, and T. Higgins all at 80%. Some of them only had 10 or 12 games. Ron, obviously, the wide receivers. Now, this is the group that does go pretty far down. I'm sure the top 30 looks like they're above 60%. Probably the top 36 is above 50%. But we definitely had some surprises, both good and bad. Your thoughts on the wide receiver position for this year? Definitely some up-and-coming players for next year. How high they get drafted, we'll wait and see. But why don't you kind of give your thoughts on that, and then who do you got as a potential favorite heading into next year?
Yeah, it's not a ton of surprises here. Like you said, when you go down the list, of course, you got Chris Godwin there that was on fire until the unfortunate injury that he had, but you got Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, Justin Jefferson. You got the usual suspects there. There's really not a lot of surprises in there. A guy that sticks out to me that I almost talked about tonight, and I'm hoping that is the guy that gets 0 points tonight, even though I like him a lot going into next year. I like him going into this season. Didn't get enough of him. And that's Jackson Smith and Jigba for Seattle. He has outplayed DK Metcalf by a long shot. And Tyler Lockett, I don't even know if Tyler Lockett even exists anymore. You were talking about
I haven't heard his name either.
You were talking about Rachaad White the same way. But a guy that I love, got him in my dynasty league, and I was fortunate to get him. A guy that I actually played against last week, and that's Brian Thomas for Jacksonville. Again, LSU cranking out the wide receivers. They're kind of like Iowa with tight ends, just wide receiver you. Last week, finally got over 1,000 yards on the season, 73 grabs, 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, just a huge target, 6'3", 209. Last 4 weeks has gotten at least 10 targets. He is the guy in that offense. Nobody else is getting the ball. And he's, almost as a rookie, just one of those must-start guys. You don't really look at the matchup anymore. I kind of mixing and matching him at the beginning of my dynasty season. I put him in probably about, week 4. Haven't looked back since. And he's had a few games in there. Of course, he's a rookie where they haven't been all clutch. But again, he's finding the end zone. He's getting double-digit targets, and he's just going to skyrocket from here. That ADP is going to shoot up. So he's going to be expensive going into next year. But I think he's going to be, again, right there with Jefferson, right there with Neighbors, those guys out of LSU, just going to give you the fantasy production. And hopefully they'll get the quarterback position right. Hopefully Trevor Lawrence is the guy. We'll see. I don't know. I look for Jacksonville to maybe have a new head coach heading into next year. But one thing is going to be consistent, and that's going to be Brian Thomas, no matter who's there.
Yeah, when he's been putting up these straight, 5 straight clutch games since week 11 with Mac Jones at quarterback, this kid's got to be pretty good. No sure. And yeah, I'm definitely in. JSN is going to be high on my list next year. The sad part is so is a lot of people. But I know one person I'm not going to draft, Ron, because I'm done with him. Done. And we loved him for the last few years, but I can't do it anymore. Mr. Cooper Kupp, you're fired. Plain and simple. Can't, dude. Week 15, week 16, you get 0 and 5 points in 2 different weeks. Dude, come on. What are you doing? I mean, I get it. You're getting old, but come on. So, yeah, I just can't do it anymore with him. They may keep him. Maybe he'll be there, but I'm hoping everybody else has the same attitude. Now, granted, hey, if I'm sitting there and he's wide receiver 4, okay, maybe, but he probably won't. He'll get drafted pretty high. But yeah, I've just these last 2 weeks have just been brutally bad. He's 64% consistent. He's 33rd in total points. Of course, he's only playing 11 games. That's another problem that I have is that he wasn't there all season. He did have a good start at the beginning of the season with some games, but definitely fallen off after that. So I'm pretty much done with Mr. Cooper Kupp. I'll just keep drafting, guys like Jacoby Myers much later. But anyway, can't do it. Done with him. Moving on. Okay. To the tight end position. As we said, at least the 12th tight end is at 50% consistent. And that is Sam Laporta because he's put up 4 straight clutch games just to get there. That's how bad of a year he's been having. So for those of you who wasted a high pick on him, sorry. Now, not that any tight end outside of a few, George Kittle, nice year. 1 stayed fairly healthy, which is usually the biggest problem. Trey McBride, 79%. Of course, Kittle was 85%. Brock Bowers looks like if he earns at least 1 clutch game in the next 2 weeks, he will be over 60% for a tight end, which has only been done 4 times prior to this, so he will be there. Jonnu Smith had a nice run, helped me get moving along there in the Kings Classic. He did what he needed to do. He earned his clutch game, but again, didn't really matter. Mark Andrews, again, a nice comeback after a slow start for him. But Isaiah Likely filled in admirable at times. But then after that, Ron, we get into the 50% and below. Not bad. I mean, Travis Kelce obviously was a killer. 5th in total points, 53%. Now, of course, he had a great game yesterday, so that'll probably boost him up in the standings and consistency with his big game. Broke the record, beating Tony Gonzalez out. Yes, he'll be in the Hall of Fame, folks. Don't worry about it. He was already in 3 years ago. So I'm not too concerned with that. that'll be a fun time. Maybe I'll come out of retirement to drive that year. I don't want to drive Travis. I want to drive Jason.
Yeah, that'd be way. Yeah, I agree.
I'd assume, right? So I'll drive as presenter. I'll drive Jason. I'll hang with him. Everybody else can hang with, Travis and Swifties. You imagine what a nightmare that's going to be, though. If she comes in, if they're still together and he comes in, they'll probably be married by then if they're still together. Because
it'll be security like no other, other.
God. Yeah. That just gives me just terrible nightmare chills. What a disaster that will be, especially if they get married. Let's say he retires after next year. So he retires into 2025. Then it's 5 years from there. So yeah, it'll be like what, 2032, 20, something like that. But yeah, the whole city of Canada will shut down. Swifty Nation would just take over. They'll have hotel rooms at like $1,000 a night. It'd be like Vegas. Anyway, back to the tight end position, Ron. It is what it is. We know. I mean, at least we know what we're looking at every time when the season starts. You know what you're getting with the tight ends. You hope you grab one or two that can be helpful. Maybe save the day, like Jonnu Smith, who basically had nothing as of week 8. He was 3 4 7, and we didn't think much of it, and then all of a sudden he just when Tua came back, he kind of just took off from there, and definitely is really put up some nice numbers. A lot of times out targeting Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. But Ron, talk about. I know you have a favorite this year. Favorite of mine too, of course, because of who he plays for. But I'll let you talk about the tight end position and one of our favorite tight ends always.
Yeah, it's kind of the same concept as quarterbacks this year. You're kind of mixing and matching here almost a little more than you are with the quarterbacks. But again, a couple of guys at the top, if you're lucky enough to grab them. If you got Jonnu Smith off the scrap heap, which I don't think I wrote about him. He went undrafted in majority of leagues. If you were lucky enough to grab him, I was a George Kittle guy in my dynasty. So that's kind of paying off. But the guy I'm going to talk about is the guy that I had on both Kings Classic teams. I know you have him a lot of places. And I feel like I talked about him not that long ago. But you know what? I want to talk about him again, because he got us another clutch game last week, and that's David Njoku, guy that was questionable going into the week. I was texting you Saturday morning, who we going with the tight end? Roll with Njoku. So we did. He was in there and ended up getting that clutch game. A little sketchy at first, though. I don't think he had a catch in the first half, but they turned it on. He ended up having 8 for 66 and getting that clutch game and chipping in on my punching my finals ticket there. But we want to see some touchdowns this week. We want to see him with a little bit better stat line this week heading into the championship. They got Miami. Miami's been about middle of the road against tight ends, not great, not terrible. So hopefully he's going to be targeted early and often. But again, another guy that going into drafts, I think is going to be super affordable. I mean, the clutch games are there when he's there, but a little bit of question mark at what they're going to do at quarterback. But again, with Jameis in there, you saw an uptick in the targets, you saw an uptick in the production. So I'm really hoping that they go somewhere other than Watson, because I feel like when Watson is in there, there's really not a lot of guys on that offense you want. But Njoku, I think, is the guy still that could put up some numbers if Watson's in there, but I feel a lot better about it if there's somebody else in there. But again, a guy that you and I, we've gotten a lot of consistency out of last couple of seasons, and hopefully that'll be a trend. But I don't think he's going to be super expensive.
No, probably not. I mean, it is scary because Watson was the quarterback, and weeks 1 through 6, Njoku had 0.0 clutch games. And I think Watson got hurt in week 7. And that's when Winston came in, and then Winston and DTR the rest of the season said, "Oh, look, we have this guy that can catch a football. Let's throw it."
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's not bad. So it's amazing when you realize, because he's 9th in total points. He's 55% consistent. So because 6 out of his last 8 games, so he's 75% when Watson wasn't playing. And so, yeah, hopefully he'll be, Winston will be the quarterback, or somebody other than Deshaun Watson. I don't care if it's Ben Watson or Bubba Watson for the golfer. I'll take him over the other Watson. Anyway, I'm going to get cheeky with it. Just to remind everybody, he's not dead. He's earned 2 straight clutch games. Mason Rudolph at quarterback. Ron talked about Mason this week. Definitely take if you're looking for something to grab onto. You got tight end problems this week. Get cheeky with it this week. It might help you win a title. So check that out for sure. So Ron, coming into this week, I'm sure. Did you get some Christmas? Did you get some football cards for Christmas, or you just pull more out of your thing?
I did not. I went super old school this week. I went with some that I've had since I was a kid. A couple of guys that you're gonna enjoy here. So I went with little 1991 Pro Line Ed McCaffrey autograph card here, and that's the pre-Denver Ed McCaffrey, of course, father of Christian McCaffrey that we all know, but New York Giants Ed McCaffrey style there. And last but not least, we don't give enough credit to the defense, and this guy was one of the all-timers. That dude tackled anything that moved. RIP, Mr. Junior Seau, one of the best to ever do it. That guy was an absolute beast, super fun to watch, and it was easily the best player on those Chargers teams in the 90s. One of them went to the Super Bowl, but they were never that good. But, man, that guy, Pro Bowler, All-Pro every year. So, again, RIP to Junior Seau, one of the greats to ever do it. So, again, good luck in those championships. We were talking off air. I think I'm just going to I'm going to bury my head in the sand and not check till Tuesday morning. So hopefully everybody else out there feels a little more confident than I do. But again, good luck to you. Hope you had a great holiday. Happy New Year. And keep coming over to BigGuyFantasySports.com, checking out everything we got over there. We're going to have the consistency, the props, all that. So keep coming over and getting that good stuff especially all the way through the end of the season at BigGuyFantasySports.com.
Definitely. All right, everybody. As he said, good luck. Happy New Year's to everybody. Probably by the time we'll see you next year, because it'll be next year when we do our next show. So everybody take care. Have a great weekend. Great New Year's. God bless. Take care. Win some ships. We'll see you next year, not just next week. We're out.